health, wellness, alcohol intersectionality. What does that actually look like? Really exciting to have all three of you on stage and on this panel. I know especially when we were meeting up beforehand to really talk about, what exactly, how can we talk about alcohol? How can we talk about the intersection of wellness, health, all of these things that we heard earlier as well. People are really mindful of. We're changing the way that we consume not only media, but as well as like the beverages that we're consuming, things like that. Before we dive completely into the material, can you each share a little bit about your own journey as it relates to health, wellness, and alcohol intersectionality?
I'm happy to start.
Fantastic.
Super, yes. Thank you for the kind introduction, Gabby. So my journey in this non-alcoholic space began about 3 years ago. After a few years of doing moderating and taking little breaks, I just started to sort of be a bit more curious about my relationship with alcohol, and wanted to, as I was maturing, as I was getting older, I wanted to sort of think about, how it was serving me. And initially those breaks were great and moderating was great, but I often found that it was still consuming a bit of my time in terms of like how I was going to approach, after I take these breaks, or if I was moderating, how much was I moderating? And I really just wanted to try something new. And I wanted to have the ability to move into a lifestyle that was healthier, a little bit more present, have the ability to navigate challenges in life, and find different ways to cope with the stresses that come up. So I would say that those choices and taking that approach has made a significant difference in my life. And so now after 3 years, I've learned a lot, and I really want to be able to support other people in their journey and their interests and their curiosity. There is no absolute, in my opinion. There's just, where are you and how do you meet yourself and other people where they're at?
Beautifully said. Thank you. Natalia?
Hi, everyone. My journey in the non-alcoholic beverage, non-alcoholic cocktails started when I actually started working at Little Saint. I was a mixologist, but not super interested in non-alcoholic drinks. And when I started working there, I couldn't help noticing that 1/3 of the cocktail program was non-alcoholic. So out of 15 drinks, 5 didn't have any alcohol. And that really blew my mind because I had that perception that non-alcoholic drinks were not exciting, right? I'm a bartender mixologist. I love to drink. So when I started working there, I saw how much passion, how much work, and how creative you could get by making those drinks, right? Because when you take the main component, that's the spirit, how do you make that drink exciting, right? So these past 2 years have been really challenging and very, I've been learning a lot. But yeah, that's how I started.
Thank you. And Abe?
Hi. I pretty much hit a fork where it's either go down one path that I knew, how that would end, and it would have been a pretty grim ending, or you try this one more time, and the answer was just to completely stop ingesting alcohol. But I didn't want to view anything as a sacrifice or like I was giving anything up, not least of which was the career I was building in the beverage industry. So I made the decision to reframe everything around alcohol, and realizing that even if I had decided to leave the beverage industry, we live, for better or worse, I say it's not going to go away. Alcohol, that is. So I didn't want to be scared of a substance and be, if you're abusing a substance, you're controlled while you're using it. You can be if you're abusing it, but you can also be controlled by it after you quit it if you don't go through that reframing process, I think. So for the past 4 years plus, that's what I've been doing. And again, I don't want to be afraid of a substance that's around everywhere and that I, love so much beyond the actual, one of the components in a beverage that means so much more to us. And this is a great example of what it is. It's just, people, a means for connection, right? So yeah, I did that, and I was frantically looking for any other examples of people who might be sober sommeliers. I found one account on Instagram from London, I think, another master sommelier who had quit after passing his exam, so no one actively kind of working towards it. So on my 100th day, I decided to out myself with this sober somm account, and just put all my fears out there, becoming unhireable, becoming a potential liability, raising questions of people who had worked with me before, people around me, people in my current job. But I just leaned into it, and it's been working out. And now my focus is to show that regardless of whether you ingest or don't ingest alcohol, you can have a very successful career within it and still have everything that it's a means for, which again, it's just connection.
I think talking about the fears, and this is another reason why we wanted to include this conversation, talking about those fears on, what can you lose? What does that mean for my career? Things like that. The wine industry at this moment, even October, where there's normally a saying like sober October, I think is so fearful of this health, wellness, empowerment that a lot of people feel, that I saw the opposite happen this year, which was come over October and encouraging people to start drinking again. And not that either one is bad or good, but I say that to highlight, there shouldn't be a fear, much like other industries, right? In our conversations, I brought up the milk industry and the fact that, dairy probably looked at oat milk and soy milk and almond milk and was like, oh my God, what's going to happen here to me, right? And it's like, who hasn't been drinking milk forever? It was exactly what we had at school in your little carton every single day. But what we've seen now is giving people an option to enjoy what works for them. And I think part of the key thing that's going to make the wine industry is learning to understand and embrace change, which it's very, very hesitant towards change. And so us being able to talk about health, wellness, what is mindful drinking, what does this actually look like for your career, and sort of demystifying and settling down some of those fears and what the true reality of that looks like here is really important to this group. So I guess one of the first questions that I'd like to ask is, what have been some of the most significant changes that you've all observed throughout, whether it's been the last couple of years since you started, most recently, as non-alcoholic products have been, marketed, produced, like what information is out there to really help us get a frame of mind for where we're at and where we think we're going with this?
One of the things that I like to pay lots of attention to is the language that I use. Speaking of come over October, I say sobriety is not abstinence. Sobriety, in my mind, how I've reframed it, is conscious consumption. So if you're able to consciously consume whatever that is, and still be present, still be, of course, conscious, still have all those things around you without anything suffering, then great, that works for you. In my case, again, it's more of a, when you have a gluten allergy, some people are just intolerant, some people have celiac. I have celiac with alcohol, so I can't really, it's a kind of progressive. It's just whatever works for you. It's like you were saying. But another thing is I don't view sobriety as anti-alcohol inherently either, because again, it's a very personal choice, and it's more about taking that term that we love to throw out, inclusivity, and really figuring out what it means in every sector. Even if we talk about intention, for example, even if it's performative as a business owner, or you don't really care about doing, good by your consumer base, even if it's just for the money, why wouldn't you as a business person, want to exploit that other, area of a huge market out there that's, gonna buy your product by going into non-alcoholic, etc. And yeah, that's it.
Well, let's talk to a business owner. Not to put you on the spot, but one thing that I really, really admire about Southside is you were all one of the first establishments in Napa Valley that I saw really championing a space for not even offering cocktails. It was just, alcohol-free cocktails, and really trying to champion a different space on how people engaged with not always consuming, high percentages of wine. You started offering low or no. What sort of changes have you seen in how things are marketed, produced, even things that you incorporated into your business over the last couple of years?
Yes. So to your point about there being a little bit of an evolution, like at first with the, milk industry and like oat milk and that. I mean, I remember when we, we're a breakfast lunch cafe and we serve specialty coffee. And, I remember resisting wanting like one more milk, like, I got to do coconut milk as well, and having my own business allows me to sort of create a space where I can be thoughtful to those, but also be true and authentic to myself. And, to create a business is sort of a dream, to be able to sort of be creative and be thoughtful in the food and the beverages that one is serving. The main thing that I wanted to do is, as I started to approach going non-alcoholic, was give people a space. We're already a community-based cafe. I wanted to create a space where we could have options for everyone. And it was in the non-alcoholic beverages. We still are inclusive to have a few thoughtful wines and beer. I think that definitely shrank as, my interest in the non-alcoholic space grew, because it's something that was important to me. And I wanted to make sure, because there was such a lack of it here, that someone like myself, who was starting to take an interest in that, had a place to go to learn more, to be curious, to try different products, to talk to other people who might have an interest. I mean, I love to see people walk in our space and go over to the bottle shop and look at what some of the options are and see the display of our, zero proof cocktails and get excited. Like, it looks fun. And maybe they wouldn't have thought of trying that before, but now, that's something that takes their interest. And it just opens up a conversation for people that I'm trying to tap into. Like, there's plenty of places to get a glass of wine, get a cocktail. You can do that with us as well. But there weren't places where someone like myself could sort of take part in this ritual that, is still important to me, but just in a different way. I don't need the alcohol anymore. I just want to have the experience. I'm such a social person. I love gathering. And that's part of the reason why we created this cafe, was so that we had a community place. And so to make it easier for those who are curious or interested is huge.
Absolutely. And for me, that's one of the things that I love about wine and spirits, is it gives us an opportunity to connect, right? It's almost like a gift that you get to share with somebody. But in many of those spaces, and also what I'm hearing you say, is you didn't necessarily need that to feel that connection. And I think sometimes historically, how having zero proof cocktails or no alcohol, the marketing behind that was, you're going to feel left out and you can't be included in things, and you're no fun to hang out with at a party.
Yeah.
And we're really shifting that mindset because people are prioritizing their health so much.
For sure. So definitely, to your point, the marketing has changed. Now you're seeing people have just as good a time with non-alcoholic beverages, and you're role modeling, what it looks like. People see me at events or see me come to their house and I bring a non-alcoholic drink and I'm still having a great time. I just feel good the next day too. I can still go work out.
And people don't drink for many reasons, right? Sometimes it's because of a drinking problem, or it could be because pregnancy, or you have an important meeting next day, or you're working. So making sure that those people feel included when they come to us, when they come to our restaurant, it's really important, right? So I feel that the beauty of having those drinks available is that when they hit the table, everybody orders a drink. They don't look very different from the cocktails, right? So nobody's asking, oh, why aren't you not drinking? Because sometimes you don't want to talk about it, right? You just want to blend in, you want to have a good time. So that's why I feel that it's so important to make sure that those people feel embraced.
I also think, and that kind of ties into a conversation that we had offline a little bit on, Abe, I think you had mentioned this sort of like 3-lens approach on when somebody might not be consuming and understanding why they're not consuming, because you could have somebody who is recovering maybe from their sobriety versus somebody who is thinking about it from a wellness perspective. Can either one of you tap into that and sort of the mindfulness when it comes to understanding that consumer and maybe why they're choosing to abstain, or what does that mindful drinking sort of lens look like?
I think it's easier when you're getting that immediate, I'm in restaurants, so that immediate feedback of reading the person in front of you. And yeah, that's something that has to be very active. Starting with, for example, when people ask me for suggestions on non-alcoholic products, I have different categories, one of which is to fool you, the ones that, taste very close to its alcoholic counterpart. Other ones that are just good beverages, not trying to be anything other than a great beverage. But it's with that in mind, knowing that because I've done all this work on reframing, am able to still taste, swish alcohol in my mouth and spit it out and still perform my job and just view it differently. I know other people get activated with just a whiff of whatever it is, right? So it's knowing those things. It's a little tougher because you are not going to ask, oh, why are you not drinking? If it's a party of 6 people and there's one. But I always go in with the intention of having them join in on the experience. I love splashing people at the place that I'm at because we have really cool wines and I get excited, and I love everything about wine and beverage and all those things. So I'll come in and I'll splash them with like a cool, the Brazilian sparkling if they, they're toasting, but I'll also have the non-alcoholic sparkling wine that I enjoy myself for the person who's not drinking. And then if it looks similar, it's in the same glass, etc. I really love that enhanced experience. I love seeing that face when they go, oh my God, it's just so unexpected and welcoming and open. And that to me is what it's about, to have everything coexist and really lean into that interconnectedness. This is a very specific aspect of it, but really that's all of us here. We could all be under the umbrella of Latinas, Hispanics, but each one of us has a completely different world, a different perspective, etc. But somehow we're able to enjoy this energy of the collective. So that's a microcosm of that.
100%. Do either of you care to share as well?
I was just going to add a little bit to what you were saying. What I love is sometimes, maybe people come in and they themselves, want to have a beverage, but then they have a family member that they've brought with them who has decided not to, drink any longer for whatever reason. And it's great that they now feel excited about being able to come to a place where they can either enjoy it there or they can bring one of the options that we have to take home to one of their, friends or family member who has recently decided to moderate, or, and it, to your point, it could be a health reason. It could be, a sobriety reason, and to kind of be open and understanding to everyone's needs. That's our job in hospitality. And it's really great to have an understanding as someone who used to drink, who used to moderate, and who now no longer drinks. I feel like, I can offer people a really, there's absolutely no judgment. It's more, where are you at? Meet them there, and maybe, help them with someone that they're, trying to support.
I wanted to mention also low ABV cocktails. It has been a trend for a reason. I think back in the days, people really wanted a drink that was strong and stiff, and that's a cocktail, right? Well, not really. You can actually make cocktails that are low ABV, and you can actually have two and be fine the next day, right? So I think that this has been a trend. People are really focused on wellness. Like I myself, I'm not 21 anymore. So the way that my body responds to alcohol nowadays, I have to be very careful. And when I'm making my drinks, I think of that, right? A lot of people, we want people to come during weekdays and come to the bar and have a glass of wine or have a cocktail. So I'm not trying to make the drink super strong, right? I want everybody to have something tasty, to have a good time, but to be functional the next day, right? So, yeah.
And speaking of cocktails, one of the things that I myself am curious about as somebody who engages in drinking more than 2 cocktails, when I look at a price list and we have, these spirits that are 0 proof, I'm trying to understand, there's a couple of barriers here for me, right? One, there's how do you educate somebody about zero proof spirits, as well as like no or low alcohol products. And then there's the pricing factor that comes into play, where I think the assumption would be, well, the reason why I paid $24 in Napa for that very expensive espresso martini was because of the vodka they chose to use. So why is it $18 now that there's no alcohol in it, right? And so there's this disconnect on how do we also educate the consumer to understand that sometimes having a 0 proof something, whether it's wine or spirits, the distillation process and being able to actually take the alcohol out, the extraction, that's an expensive process. And so I guess, can you just speak a little bit on that? Because I think I've certainly been in moments where I've seen a cocktail that didn't have any alcohol in it. I'm like, why are they pricing it at that? Like, shouldn't it just be like $6 as if I was getting a soda?
I mean, I think that it depends on where you go, right? At Little Saint, we treat the non-alcoholic drinks as seriously as the alcoholic drinks. So there's a lot of thought, a lot of work, a lot of effort. There's a lot of R&D. We have to do that over and over again until we really find something that is balanced. The non-alcoholic spirits are trending right now. I feel that they're valid. When you add them, depending on how you use it, it can add a nice backbone to your drink. They are expensive. They're not cheap. A lot of them are distilled, so it goes through a process, right? If you go to the market, there are some brands that the bottle is $35, right? You can buy a liter of vodka for $20. Right? So it's not cheap. And when you go to a restaurant, you are going for the experience, right? You have your server, you have your bartender, you're in a beautiful space, you have the glassware. Yes, you can make drinks at home for cheap, but then you're at home alone, right? That's not fun, unless you're having a house party. But, when you go out and you want to go have a nice dinner, you are going to pay, right? And I feel that we are very fortunate at Little Saint because people come in and they really respect our program. And I never got any complaints on pricing. When that drink hits the table and they're like, oh, wow, this is beautiful, this is tasty, it's different, charging $15 for a can of soda, then I would be upset too. But when it's a craft, non-alcoholic cocktail, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I'll echo what she said. When Gabby, you know this because you come to Southside very often.
Every day.
Yes. But we've created a space where it's extremely thoughtful in terms of all the details. It's the record player, it's the decor, it is the flowers that are enhancing the space, it is the staff that we spend a lot of time at training. We, with our non-alcoholic program, we put the same amount of energy into crafting a zero proof cocktail for you, using good ingredients, partnering with people who, really put a lot of love and time and energy into their product. When possible, I like to make connections with the vendors and have them come and do tastings, and they work really, really hard to craft something beautiful and thoughtful, and so we try to make that be in line with what we already do. And so it's just a compliment. But, if you're mindful of your money, which most of us are, we're hopeful that you'll choose us and come to us because you see, the love and the consistency and the quality that we put into our food and our beverage program.
And Abe, how do you see that changing or evolving or maybe being similar, at Contento or other places that you've been in as it relates to like misconceptions and like pricing when you're seeing a de-alcoholized wine or things like that from the consumer perspective, or even from maybe like the trade side of things?
Yeah, again, with language, I try to stay away from even utilizing or leaning into the alcohol removed, or if someone asks me about the process, more than happy to talk about it, but I don't like to communicate that anything was taken from a beverage. I totally agree. I think it's about the experience. If I look at my own, I also think some of these products are overpriced, and understandably so, but I get that not everyone is going to even care about learning as to why that is, right? I myself don't really care sometimes, but when I'm out and about and I'm surprised with this, perception is everything. So a drink that lands on my table that's beautifully crafted, that's delicious, I'm not gonna say anything about the pricing, because I'm there to connect with my people. It's the drinks are secondary, maybe not even secondary, just like not really the stars of the show. So how it's our job ultimately to communicate the value, and not necessarily, again, talking about the processes and whatnot, but I think the value comes through in making someone feel included, and that's it. So it's working on that.
And can I just say that something that we talked about offline is if you're not drinking alcohol, you generally will have like one cocktail. You don't have that same draw that brings you back to have a few. So, one well-paid drink, is okay. You're okay with that, because you're not ordering 2 and 3 and 4, because you're kind of good with one.
Yeah.
Just saying.
You talked extensively, though, about the incredible cocktail menu program that Little Saint has, especially you said, was it 35% of your beverage menu? Out of 20 drinks, 5 of them are non-alcoholic?
Out of 15, 5 are non-alcoholic.
5 are non-alcoholic. How do you, and everything that you do there I know is very intentional, how are you selecting like what brands you want to work with? Like what do you look for in non-alcoholic products as somebody who's working with them?
Great question. At Little Saint, we really try to showcase local distilleries, producers, and people that give back to the community. When I'm crafting non-alcoholic drinks, I'm not necessarily thinking about using a non-alcoholic spirit. I think about what we're very lucky. We have a farm 5 minutes away from our restaurant. So that is my north. I always go there. I talk to the farm manager. And I see what's available. So this is how I create my drinks. What we also do is we're very connected to the kitchen. So they will start using a product, for example, beets or carrots, and they will save the juice, the pulp. They will give it to the bar, and then we turn that into something else. So we don't necessarily lean on non-alcoholic spirits. This is what we call closed block cocktails, because it starts in the farm, goes to the kitchen, hits the bar, and hits the customer. And that way we also reduce waste. It's a more sustainable way of thinking of making drinks, right? So yeah, I do feel that there is a space for non-alcoholic spirits. We do use, there are some brands that we love to support. Free Spirits, that is based in Marin County. They make non-alcoholic tequila gin. Campari. Some of these non-alcoholic spirits are really, really, really interesting. There is a brand called Dose. It really tastes like gin. It's kind of scary, very juniper forward. Yeah, there's a lot out there. I would recommend doing some research, see what you think is going to be a good fit, and experiment, right? Just get a bottle, see how it feels. I have to say they kind of taste weird on their own, but when added, they're not meant to be sipped. They're not meant to be to sip on, but they will give a good backbone to your non-alcoholic drink. So it's really worth it to experiment with them.
That comment on the gin is so funny because I actually have celiac disease. When you brought that up earlier, I thought it was hilarious. And I've eaten some things before that I'm like, are you sure there's no gluten in here? Because it tastes like there's gluten in here. For you, Irma, how are you determining which brands you want to showcase and feature? Like, what does that process look like from you as a restaurateur and business owner on how you gravitate towards who you want to work with?
Well, number one is taste. We have a reputation of, what we serve, and I want to sort of make sure that people maintain the confidence that they've always had of, what they're going to receive at Southside, is something that you're going to enjoy. We're not going to put anything out there that may not be your style, but, there's something for everyone. Because we're in Napa, obviously, one part that was really important was having mimics of wine. Like sparkling wine was certainly at the forefront of, especially for breakfast and lunch, having an option for people. I just started going out to other places and testing things myself. I went to a place in San Francisco, Ocean Beach Cafe, and Josh has such a great retail space, and it's such a great way to try different things that you may or may not like, going to events, meeting people that, I could learn about their product. I know people that are health conscious want to have things that are low in sugar. But primarily it's just tasting good and who is the producer. I met a woman who has a premium wine out of San Luis Obispo, Rachel Martin with Oceana Zero, and it's a quality wine and it's made well, and I have so much respect for her because she's taken her what we call fully leaded wine and ventured into non-alcoholic and now low alc with the Syrah that she's come out with. So building relationships. Yes. So and I'm really excited to come to your spot. It sounds fantastic.
I love that. Do you have a special approach as well if you're curating your menu at Contento or things that you choose to focus on?
I think taste is top of mind always. And then if I like the taste, then I ask those questions of, okay, who's behind this, which is equally as important, but always taste, because otherwise there's no point. I want to support so many people, but if you don't have a good product, you kind of make it difficult. So that's on that. But we also at Contento don't lean into having too many products. We have a really awesome team of mixologists who will create from, I guess, quote unquote, scraps from the kitchen. It's on the menus on the African diaspora. So lots of cool, bold, interesting flavors. And I say interesting for most of people who might not be familiar with it in that area. But it makes for equally interesting beverages and sustainable in a small but still impactful way, I think.
And I think, that non-alcoholic cocktails, they don't have to mimic a cocktail. It can be something on its own, so you can experiment. I love fermenting things. You can get really nice flavors, like different flavors, strong, by experimenting with fermenting, shrubs. There's so many things out there that can be done. You don't have to try to replicate a martini, right? Like, it's not gonna taste good. It's not a martini. So, there is a place for, and also like some people stop drinking because and they don't want to drink something that is going to remind them of that. But they still want something interesting. They want something fun. They want something tasty. They want something with characters. So I do feel that there is space for non-alcoholic spirits, but I also feel that we cannot lean on them. We have to be more creative than that and just try to experiment and use them as a support.
I think you have to have options for people that are easy too. I notice people are, they're like, I'm not a bartender, I'm not a mixologist. What can I do that's going to be fun and interesting? And so it's nice to have a couple of go-tos, whether it's an RTD or ready to drink. Oh, this one's great. You just serve it over ice, put a little orange rind on it, or something that's like 2 or 3 steps. We carry the Pathfinder, which is a root hemp, non-alcoholic spirit. And, it's my favorite. It's my go-to. And I love telling people little ginger beer, little lemon juice, and the Pathfinder, which is kind of like an Amaro, and you're golden. It's just, actually, that's the name of the cocktail, the golden highball. Yeah. But seriously, it's delicious, it's refreshing, and I often surprise people. And I'll have some behind the bar, and I'll give them just a little taste, and you can just win them over by just like, wow, that's really tasty. And then they go, okay, I can mix 3 things together, So just making it simple for people and easy.
Yeah, and speaking of making things simple and easy, for anybody here who's curious on exploring and kind of discovering what might be some great, zero proof spirits or even maybe no or low alcohol products, are there any recommendations that you would personally love to push, whether that's because of who they are as a company or even taste and flavor, which seems to be really important?
Yeah, before I stopped drinking, I was really into Negronis, and I loved Negronis with mezcal. And Cut Above has a really awesome mezcal. It's smoky quality, mimics, the real mezcal well.
What was the name of that one?
A Cut Above mezcal.
A Cut Above.
Yes. And there's also a really fun elixir, free spirit elixir that we have on our program right now, and we're doing a Paloma with it. And again, it's sort of a simple grapefruit juice, the free spirit elixir, which has like 7 herbs, and it has adaptogens and kava root and chamomile. And one of the things about what I used to believe is that alcohol would sort of like de-stress me. But what I've come to learn is that, especially if you have a little bit of anxiety, it can make it worse. So by having something like that free spirit elixir, you could have something that's just a little bit more calming, but done in a way that's a little bit more natural. So that's a really great option. Those 2, I'd say.
I love that. I'm definitely going to check out A Cut Above because I'm a mezcal fan.
All right, chica, I got you.
Natalia, any that you would personally recommend?
Yes, I love a brand called Dos, DHOS. Tastes great and also has great stabilizers. So when you shake it, it foams really well, and that makes the drink really beautiful. So I don't remember if they're based in Oregon or Washington, but I've been working with this brand since I started working at Little Saint, and I absolutely love it. They have the gin that I said is a little scary, very juniper forward. They have an orange liqueur that is absolutely delicious, great texture. And they have a rhubarb bitter liqueur, non-alcoholic liqueur that really makes, gives great character to the drink. So that's my favorite brand at the moment.
DHOS.
DHOS.
Fabulous. Abe?
I'll just run through a few, but Ritual, the gin's my favorite because it doesn't taste like gin, but it has that bite. And again, the experience. When I go home, I like the feeling of having my favorite glass, whatever contents are in it, sinking into my couch with my tacos, which I eat like too often. So Ritual, I recently tried, I think it's Divine Roots or Roots Divine. It's vermouth-like. Delicious. Just top it with tonic. Speaking of something super simple, I love all athletic beer. Guinness 00 for the texture. Delicious. Talk about the ones to fool you. Naughty Sparkling. It's Thompson and Scott Naughty, the sparkling rosé. Absolutely delicious. So many. There's so much out there, but those are just a few top of mind.
And you mentioned one that's super huge as well. Did you say Athletic?
Yeah.
Yeah, they sponsor actually a lot of soccer teams. So, again, when we're thinking about two athletes who want to enjoy and be able to participate, but maybe, don't want to consume the alcohol that's negatively going to impact their performance. And so this is clearly an opportunity for the wine industry as well as the spirits industry who's already embracing it to look at something that could be creative solution to maybe how do I get, a new generation of drinkers to actually come and engage or even visit my tasting room or things like that, which does bring me to a question that I'd love to get your thoughts on. I see a lot of people here who work in wine, maybe own tasting rooms, things like that. When we think about non-alcoholic spaces, and maybe you're not going to ask, a small producer, winemaker to go out and now create a wine product, even if it's one SKU, that doesn't have alcohol because of the cost associated, whatever it might be. But how do we, as an industry, for wine specifically, or if you have a tasting room, create those inclusive spaces for people who maybe aren't looking to drink but still want to engage with the brand and the storytelling that you have to offer?
Just creating something thoughtful. We've talked about, what we have access to, especially at a restaurant, makes it a lot easier for us to produce something more interesting and creative. But, there's things like something simple, like having a, sparkling water with bitters. Another company that's fabulous is All the Bitters, just some using beautiful glassware, with some sparkling water, with some, different bitters. That just makes it feel special, and that's easy. That's something that's just thoughtful, but takes care of someone who isn't consuming alcohol. But it's the experience. It's, I went to a winery, Donham, and we did, the artwork is fabulous there. I want to enjoy that too, but it was our anniversary and we weren't drinking, and a friend set up the tasting, but they had a flight of some interesting, just mocktails, some things that they just made up. So I think it's just important to come up with something that you could sit there with your group, or, just to experience beautiful vineyards, or, every winery tells its own story. So whether you're bringing someone there or you want to go and enjoy, it is something to do, because there's a lot here in Napa to check.
And on the business side, think about I think this was a Danny Meyer thing, but the long dollar. These people might not be drinking in the moment, but they're going to have such an awesome experience in the vineyard, the artwork, whatever it is that you have to offer, or even just the storytelling, that they're going to go tell their friends who will go. They will come back. And it's just that kind of return on investment, and just adding, I don't know, a simple drink that's not even reflective of maybe your brand, but it's reflective of your mission, of your being inclusive, et cetera, et cetera. And I just want to double down on All the Bitter, amazing company. I love them. Try them.
On that note, that made me think of December of last year. My mom was visiting from Brazil, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take my family to wineries. And I remembered that my mom doesn't drink. So she loves to party, but doesn't drink. So I was like, hey, you don't have to come. You can stay home because I know you don't drink. She said, no, absolutely not. I want to go. I want to see. I'm here. Like, I want to be part of it. Like, the entire family is going. I took her to 3 different places. None of them had non-alcoholic options, right? So I think that is something that we have to start thinking of as business owners, as managers, just to give that person, just to have something, right? We are very lucky to be Napa area, Sonoma. There are a lot of producers. Even if you don't want to do it yourself, if you have a winery, talk to your neighbors, see who does it. And that can also be a platform for them, right? So that way you are embracing everybody that comes into your winery, and you're also collabing with somebody that is doing something amazing, and supporting each other, right? So I do feel that every place should have at least one option.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be the challenge here in the next couple of years. And Idema, you used the word evolution when we first got started, because it's not like all of a sudden, you flip a switch and the entire industry has changed. The milk industry slowly started changing. I mean, you now go to Starbucks and you don't have to pay extra for almond milk now or oat milk, which is so great because it was always $3 more for my drinks. So, but all that to say is, you have an opportunity to try to think about how can you be proactive on creating a space to where you're attracting everybody to come in. You're not leaving anybody out of the equation, and somebody then will turn around, speak about that, and then either you're now their go-to spot because you've created one thing maybe for them to enjoy, and they're going to bring in other friends to then want to come be a part of that as well. So I think that's a really great point that you hit on, is just having an option. I know it works for me with my gluten allergy. As long as I can eat one thing on the menu and it's not lettuce, I am happy. I guess my last question for all of you before I open it up to the audience would be, when somebody is thinking about maybe the wellness journey or moderating a little bit, I know I've told myself I'm going to go 30 days and then like a super fun event happens and I'm like, just one, it's like, it's
Story of my life.
I'm just like, this is too fun not to celebrate, right? What does that process look like in terms of what you maybe from your own insights and your own process look like on if somebody wanted to start maybe being a little bit more intentional on maybe like myself sticking to 30 days and things like that? Where do you start?
Yeah, I would just say just give yourself grace and just be curious and open, but every effort is a successful effort. And, you might be at different places at different times, and especially as we age, and you want to ask yourself, how do I want to age? And how is this serving me and my current life choices and goals? I think if you just kind of keep asking yourself that, and just be open and not be judgmental, because, all efforts are good efforts.
I try to be I love working out, and drinking doesn't help with that. So I really try to be mindful and conscious, and honestly, I can't set these goals like 30 days. I can't do anything restrictive. It really makes me stressed because, let's say like sugar, I'm a sugar addict. If I say, okay, I'm gonna do 30 days without sugar, I'm gonna be craving that so bad by the end of the day. Like I cannot put those crazy restrictions on me. But definitely be mindful, be kind to yourself, and see what works best for you, right? Look for options that are going to make you feel good. So it can be drinking less, once a week, but yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I think the thing that's made the biggest difference is educating myself on how alcohol was actually impacting me, because knowledge is power. It's the same thing with nutrition. But it's like going to church. Like when you're ready to hear it, you hear it, right? Like when you're interested in it and you open your mind and you say, okay, so what does really happen with the process of alcohol? Like, I really wanted to know and really understand, it's drawing me back to another drink because, so my own education on what alcohol is and does helped to make me make better choices, because I was like, okay, how do I want to feel tomorrow? Is it worth it for me to, it seems kind of fun, but then it's going to distract me from, doing that. And is it really doing my body any good? It was just an education. And I was like, I don't want to feel more angst. I want to, so that education can help you make a choice more thoughtfully when you're ready for it.
Just get really real with yourself. I lose a fear of getting to know yourself, because you know exactly how things affect your body, your mind, all those things. My other addiction is chips, and I know I can't be restrictive with that, but chips aren't going to ruin me. So I might get a little more
Lonja. See,
yeah.
I like those. Wait, Dad says that's called happiness.
Happiness, yes. But I can figure out a way. That's something I can moderate, Once again, with alcohol, that wasn't the case. So I just got really real, and you just figure out what it is that you need at that, and what steps you need to take to just be good. It's not even about like getting better and improvement and whatever. That happens naturally if you're just good with yourself in every way you can, and day by day.
Keep it real. That's why we called it Real Talk.
Real, yeah.
Thank you, seriously, to the three of you. This has been absolutely fantastic. I want to take our last couple of minutes to, feel free to clap. I see y'all. I was like, we can make that louder. I want to open up the room to see if anybody has any questions for our lovely three individuals. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, do we have the catch box? Can you throw it up to Rafaela?
How stressful.
Here we go. Thank you so much. This was so great. My question is related to, we're wine and spirits professionals. We're in these environments where there's alcohol sometimes when it comes to professional settings. So it could be a wine trip where there's like nonstop visits. It could be an event. It could be a speaker's thing. It could even be like happy hour with work, right? So I'm curious to get your take on the responsibility from like the workplace, the organization, and then beyond that, like what are some ways that, they can offer some, different options for other people, or, kind of integrate and be a little bit more inclusive in those situations.
Great question.
I went on my first wine trip after quitting maybe like a year into it, and I was so nervous to visit wineries because, one, just as in our culture, you don't want to be disrespectful, or even though spitting is very common, I don't know, that had me really worried. But I decided to just get really comfortable with it and just ask what I need, which is it's not much. It's just a thing to spit in or whatever it is. I realized not everyone is wondering why it is that not everyone cares, So just ask for that little thing to spit in, and then you do it your own thing. It is your personal choice, and if you're going to a wine trip or wine event, then expect there to be a lot of wine. You're also placing yourself in those environments, but there are ways to plan around it. Have maybe this is not for everyone either, but I always have an exit strategy if I start to feel, honestly, just with crowds, not even alcohol. It doesn't have to do with alcohol. If I get too overwhelmed with 200 people, I need an exit strategy. But have those things in mind to like take a step back and reset. And again, it all has to do with knowing what works for you and what you need and how you might kind of make yourself feel okay in unplanned situations, I think.
Yeah, as things evolve, as things continue to evolve, people are not in the same place that I am. So, I'll come with my own drinks, my own NA drinks, that just one or two. And I come with like a little wine bag, but it's got like one or two things. And people ask a question initially, but it doesn't matter other than, oh yeah, I'm not drinking right now. You don't have to have a story about like, I quit drinking or, for 5 months. No, it's just like, oh, I'm just not drinking today. And that's kind of it. That's an easy approach. But I think representing is a great way to start that evolution, so that people, maybe someone who works for you or your manager or the owner, might become a little bit more, I noticed you're not drinking. Can we get you something else next time? That might open the conversation.
I do think that's a really great question, though, because in the wine industry, it's almost like we celebrate excessive consumption. Especially when you're going from like on a trip back to back to back, different functions, things like that. I say this as we're about to have a grand tasting right now outside with the 30 different spirit and wine brands. Drink responsibly. It was in your email. But I understand what you mean, Rafaela, by that. And I guess I'm curious, what challenges have maybe any of you found as it relates to like the ethos of the industry, beverage in general, having this celebration of that excessive consumption?
Yeah, when I started in the industry, common habit after your shift is done. I mean, I started my hospitality career in New York, so finished my shift at 1, and after a stressful night, all you need is a couple martinis or some shots of Fernet, because it was a rough night. And, you know, it's something that is so common, right? And I didn't realize how bad that impacted my body, right? Because after I started drinking less, and I realized that when I went back to that pattern, I felt awful the next day. And I was like, how did I do that? But, you know, in our industry, that's common, right? And we think that is the right thing to do, or nobody cares, right? So starting these conversations, we do get a lot of industry people. I have a lot of industry friends, and we go out. We don't drink heavily anymore, right? We have responsibilities. We have things to do the next day. So I do feel that there has been a shift. People are more mindful nowadays, especially in the industry. But there's still a lot of exposure, and it's very tempting, and it's very hard, right, to be moderate, to be conscious, think about the next day, think about, oh my God, I have to open the restaurant at 7 a.m. I can't do this. But I do feel that there has been a shift, and people have been drinking way less than before.
All right. Well, with that, thank you so much, y'all. I really appreciate your time, your energy, your effort.